Today I'm sculpting in Siobhan's contour clay soft to make a decorative vessel that looks like it's covered in flickering flames. I selected Siobhan's contour clay for this sculpture primarily for its buttery, smooth hand feel at room temperature, its ability to brush on vertical surfaces, its ease of blending and smoothing, and how well it holds lines and sharp edges. The contour clays are sulfur-free, which will make it easier to make a mold of this sculpture later. Its warm gray color also makes it easy to see the dark shadows and the bright highlights of the form as I sculpt. Contour clay comes in 3 hardnesses. I'm using the soft for this project because I want to work continuously without needing to stop and heat the clay, or exchange containers of clay that have been pre-softened. Let's get started. Contour clay can be softened to coat a vertical surface very nicely, which is what I need for the foundation of this sculpture. I'm going to warm the contour clay to a brushable state, and then brush it onto a cardboard tube to create my foundation. Cutting with a straight edge helps shear the clay into smaller pieces. Cutting the clay into smaller pieces helps it melt faster. Now that the clay is cut, I can put it in my warming oven. I'm using a silicone container to warm it. The brushable temperature of contour clay is 185 degrees Fahrenheit. The clay holds its shape really well. It doesn't look like it's softening, but it really is. I'm wearing heat-resistant gloves when I'm handling the hot clay and container. Please use all safety precautions when working with hot clays. After the first hour, I take the material out and stir up the clay. This helps reconstitute any of the separated material, but mainly it helps redistribute the heat so that the clay is evenly warmed up. I want the clay to be nice and smooth. I don't want any chunks of firmer clay brushing up on my armature. Let's put the clay back in the warming oven for another hour so that it can become the uniform temperature I need it to be. We've heated the clay for about 2 hours total at this point. Now that's the consistency I'm looking for. The clay is smooth all the way through. That looks much better. Now I don't have any firm sections in the clay, and the clay is the same temperature all throughout. The contour clay is a perfect consistency to brush onto my surface like a very thick paint. This thickness is ideal for brushing up onto the cardboard tube. It saturates into the pores of the cardboard, into those grooves, and creates a mechanical bond with the surface. Putting a nice even layer of clay down on the surface will make it easier to apply more clay to later. The clay loses heat rapidly, so after I paint one section, I move to the next area as quickly as I can. A helpful tip if you find that your clay on your brush is getting firm is to go ahead and dip your brush back into the warm clay where it's really liquid to soften it up, and then you can keep going and brushing continuously. I'm only covering half of the tube with clay right now so that I have an area that I can get a good grip on to move the tube as I sculpt. I don't need to wait too long for the clay to cool down that it's firm enough I can add a new layer of contour clay on top of it. I'm going to wait about a half hour and then come back to it to start sculpting. Now that the clay's cooled back down, I can start sculpting. At room temperature, the contour clay is very soft and malleable. I can roll a mass of clay into a ball, and by doing so, compress it so that I don't have any voids inside. I just have one continuous mass of clay that I can apply to my surface. The clay sticking to itself is called cohesion. It's very cohesive. Layers really want to bond to each other in the contour clay. To help further ensure that the clay doesn't come away from the surface, I'm going to smooth it in place. Once I have my curve established, I can just take a little bit of hand pressure and spread the soft clay down to close in the gap of where the new piece of clay connected to the surface. Contour clay is easy to shape just by hand. Without any tools, I'm still able to smooth it and push it into place where I want it to go. It usually takes me a few cords of clay to create one single curve, depending how big it is. This type of sculpting is sometimes referred to as freeform sculpting. I'm not working off an established pattern, I'm feeling out the shape and responding to it. I'm trying ultimately to create a sense of rhythm and movement so that you have some familiar shapes that draw the eye into each other. For my next step, I smooth out the clay that I put down so that I have a very sharp line at the highest points. My hand pressure alone is enough to smooth the soft contour clay. The color of the contour clay is perfect for seeing those low points as well. The darkest points are the deepest points on the sculpture. The lightest points are the highest points on the sculpture. So when I'm working with these curves, I can see both the top ridge that I'm trying to refine and the bottom trenches where it's at its darkest. By turning the sculpture left and right, I can see how the lighting plays off of these shapes, where it's tighter and sharper or where it's more diffuse, and I can change my shaping accordingly to how I want the light to play off the surface. The next step is to overlap curves and establish layers. Fire is translucent. I'm trying to create this effect in an opaque material, and that means blending curves into each other. After I reach a good stopping point, I can heat up some more clay to apply to the second half of the tube. This way it'll finish out the form all the way around. Again, we're warming up the clay to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the brushable temperature for contour clay, and we're brushing it in strokes right directly onto the cardboard. After a half hour, the contour clay is cooled back to room temperature, and I can start adding new layers onto the sculpture. For the final step in my sculpting phase, I'm going to use dental tools to sharpen the lines. These lines that I'm carving in are just too tight for my fingers to be able to fit into, which is why I need a tool that can sharpen them for me. Contour clay holds ultra-fine detail. I can get very precise with my line. I'm not really removing much material, I'm just trying to make the lines more crisp. But there are times where I'm going to need to go back and forth at this detailing stage to both add material on, smooth it out, and remove material as well. Contour clay ended up being a perfect tool for this project. Even though I heated up the clay so I could brush it onto a surface, for the most part, I was able to work at room temperature in my studio. I loved how easy the contour clay is to shape, blend, and smooth. It was just an enjoyable project to do. I really hope you like the outcome. Contour clay is an oil-based clay. It's not going to dry, so I can come back and sculpt again and again if I want to make changes later on. I can't wait to see how the mold comes out, and I'm excited to see any castings too. There's lots of different ways this sculpture could go. I hope you had fun watching the sculpture come together, and good luck with your own projects.